My name's Austin Zito, and I make custom hats. So I grew up in East County, La Mesa. I started skating when I was 12 years old, actually. My first skateboard I actually took from my neighbor. I grew up on a hill. I borrowed his skateboard, rode down the hill, and I never gave it back. So, I fell in love pretty quickly with skateboarding. Back in March of 2014, I got a 2-page spread in Transworld, and that was probably the hardest battle that I've ever had skateboarding. It took me 2 full days. I got sun sickness both times, and on my very last try that I was ever going to try, I actually landed the trick and got the sequence. And so that's probably my biggest accomplishment from skateboarding. I think failure, especially as an entrepreneur, is extremely important to be able to take failure and use that. And so, skateboarding, you fall hundreds and hundreds of times to land the trick one time. And being able to get up every single time and keep trying is probably the biggest takeaway from skateboarding for me. I started riding motorcycles because of skateboarding, actually. My best friend, Brenderson, we were gonna go skateboarding one day, and he pulled up on his new motorcycle that he had been working on. And he let me sit on it. I made the revving noises in my head, and as soon as we finished skateboarding, I registered for a course to get my motorcycle license, and I've just kind of been going ever since. For me, it was kind of the same feeling that I got from skateboarding for the first time. It was that exhilaration, that feeling of overwhelming joy and fun and control of your own life. Full builds, I've built 4 motorcycles from scratch, and probably 2 half builds. So sometimes they were my only mode of transportation. So if they were breaking down, I would have to fix them or take the bus. And custom motorcycles are about expressing your personal style on the bike. And it's the same with hat making. It's, I want to make a hat around, a person's style. And it's, for motorcycles, it's a personal expression of my own style. I started making hats as an accident, actually. I started about 5 years ago. I had a mentor who kind of passed me along to a local hat maker to apprentice for him for a little bit. He started showing me the ropes, and I made my first 2 hats with him. I had to move away after that, and so I started making them on my own, and just for fun, I just wanted to make them for my wife and I. People would ask me like, hey, could you make me a hat? So I would say, yeah, sure, let me just charge you for the materials and the tool to make it. And pretty soon I ended up with a pretty decent collection of hat tools, and so I kind of grew my business out of a need to create art. And I wasn't intending to start a business actually ever. I was really just making them because I enjoyed making them, and it kind of snowballed from there. The process for making a hat is still the same as it was 200 years ago. You start with the raw material, you select the block for the person's head size, you stretch it out using heat and steam. Honestly, you could make an entire hat without electricity if you really felt like it. So you stretch it over the block, process the felt by sanding and ironing, and at some point you actually light the entire felt on fire to kind of cure the oils to the surface. And then you remove it from the block, sew in the sweatband. Everything is shaped and done by hand, so you're using steam to manipulate the felt into the shape that you want it. You're cutting the brim down. Once it's ready for trim, you start sewing on whatever trim, personal items, details, and you add all those finishing touches until it becomes a hat. From start to finish though, it's about a 22-hour process per hat, so really labor intensive, and that's spread out over a couple weeks of dry times and waiting for materials and stuff. I make what I want to wear personally. My values are reflected in kind of how I make hats and the design process that I take when I approach making a hat for someone. I focus really heavily on wearability. I want people to wear what I make because it takes so long and there's so much effort put into this hat. I also focus really heavily on quality. There's these techniques that have been lost to the ages, and kind of rediscovering those and perpetually pushing myself to make a better and better product so that they last as long as the materials are able to last, which is sometimes over 100 years. And then the third thing that I really heavily focus on is authenticity. So using materials that are of the highest quality. I don't want to cut any corners to give you something that looks the part, but isn't actually the authentic thing. I really want you to have the best of the best. And for my brand, Zito Hat Co, you can come and get something that is the top of the line hat, and you can be assured that you're getting something that is like, you couldn't go anywhere else and get anything better than this. So that's kind of my aim for my brand and making custom hats.